back.
That nice.
Thanks, I tried.
Part 2.
Part dos. Mi amigos. And Spanish is a really weird gendered language, but that's beside the point of this video. Anyway.
We are going to continue with our, like,
definitions
and things like that. Yeah. Okay.
If you missed it last video, I'm Amelia. This is Travis.
Hi.
And we live in the same town, so we're doing this video together, and we miss our other mods very much. We love you guys. That's a really bad heart. Whatever. We love them and miss them and wish they were here, but we're bad at technology, so this'll have to do. Okay. So, I'm going to start out with asexuality and aromanticism. So being asexual means that you don't experience sexual attraction. And as I said in the last video, sexual attraction is wanting contact involving genitals with a specific other person. English. And asexual people do not experience this. The same thing goes with aromantics and romantic attraction. They do not feel the desire to date other people. They don't experience romantic attraction. Now, just to be clear, asexual and aromantic people don't experience attraction and that's it. So there's nothing about sex drive, desire for relationships, view on sex, sexual history, romantic history, desire for relationships. Any of that sort of stuff does not count because it doesn't count for any of the other sexualities, so why would it count for asexuality and aromanticism? That just doesn't make any sense. So asexuality and aromanticism is only not experienced sexual or romantic attraction. And you can be one or the other, or you can be both. And there are such a thing as people who are sex-positive asexuals, or romance-positive aromantics, who like sex, they like romance, they participate, they just don't feel that attraction. All the way on the other end of the spectrum is people who are repulsed by those things and they want nothing to do with sex or romance. And like everything else with asexuality and sexuality and gender, in general, it's a spectrum. So there are some people who are absolutely repulsed, there's some people who absolutely love it, and there's a million different people of varying degrees in between. So yeah, that's asexuality and romanticism. Your turn.
Alright. It's not 100% in order on our list, but I'm actually going to cover probably one of the most fundamental things about gender, which is gender identity versus gender expression. This is something I see a lot of confusion on and misconceptions, and also what's more important than the other, because depending on the situation, there are different times where one's more important. Your gender identity is basically like who you are. That's 9 out of 10 situations, that's actually going to be the most important part of your gender. So, like, I identify as a guy. I do like to present more as a guy, but for sure, I identify as a guy. I know who I am. That's me. Your gender identity is basically how you feel about yourself, how you view yourself, and what makes you feel good. Phone.
I'll be right back.
Go take care of that. I'll keep going. Gender expression is like a little different from all that. That's more how you want other people to view you. So like, I identify as a dude. She's gonna take a while. I identify as a dude, and I happen to like presenting as a dude. Like the way the whole binary works, there are like the physical masculine and feminine representations, and then there's androgynous, which is kind of like in between. I like to present more masculine on that kind of a spectrum. Androgynous is more of the neutral looking. So your expression is how you like to express your gender, how you want other people to view you, and this is how you show your you. So for example, there are actually a lot of like trans boys who like to dress more femininely. They're still boys, but they express their gender and express their interests and things that they like in a more feminine way, just because they have more feminine interests. That's completely normal. That's just something that it is. So when you're looking at your gender identity versus your expression and your identity don't have to align at all, and it's more than your identity will always trump any I hate that word now. Any misconceptions about like the way you express your gender.
Yeah.
That's my deal.
So, like, I'm a demigirl. I prefer she, her pronouns. I present as a girl. I have long hair. I wear crop tops. It's fine. It's whatever. That doesn't change the fact that I identify as a demigirl, even though everyone who I'm not out to calls me a girl and thinks that I'm a girl based on how I express myself. I know that I'm a demigirl. And so really gender expression is about how you present yourself and how other people perceive you, and identity is about how you feel you fit in to the social construct that is gender. All right, the ringer on my phone was on. Sorry. Okay, moving on.
Next.
Gotta check it out.
Check it out.
Okay, so then the next thing is gray asexuality and gray aromanticism. That's another thing that I am. So woo. Gray asexuality is when you only very, 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 very rarely experience sexual attraction, and gray aromanticism is only when you very, very, very rarely experience romantic attraction. It's kind of like in the last video how we talked about hetero and homoflexible, how there's like 1 or 2 exceptions to the rule. That's how gray is. Your default is asexual or aromantic, and there's 1 or 2 people in your entire life that are going to be an exception. It's very, very rare for you to experience that attraction. And when you do, it's kind of a, what the hell is going on? That's how I had a friend explain it to me when I was questioning. Is if you're suddenly, like, you normally don't have feelings for people, and then all of a sudden someone comes along and you're like, what's going on? What are these feelings? Oh my God, what's happening? That's kind of a common experience and kind of an indicator that you might be on the asexual spectrum, and that's really, really common among gray asexual people. The other definition of gray ace and gray aro is someone who only experiences attraction under specific circumstances, and that encompasses a lot of different sexualities. So there's the asexual spectrum, which is like everyone who experiences some degree of asexuality. And then there's the gray aromantic and gray asexual umbrella, which encompasses everything that's kind of in that gray area. And so that includes a lot of different sexualities that I will cover in a second.
Now it's my turn. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this is a little bit complicated explaining initially, the fluidity of gender. There are a lot of people who have wondered, like, hey, I've identified as this for a long time, but now I'm feeling this. Does this, like, am I faking? Does that invalidate my previous experience? Like, one of the actual classic ones I've seen is someone who, like, identified as trans for many years, but then even sometimes went to being cisgender, and they're like, does that make my trans experience invalid? Not at all. It does not. Just like sexuality is fluid and is prone to change, that is the same with gender. Your life experiences make you different and influence you, and you become a different person with every experience, and oftentimes, hopefully, you become a better person. That accidentally went away. I didn't mean it to. But so if you're saying you're feeling agender, and then later on in your life, maybe you like feel like a trans guy or whatever type thing, like, that doesn't make your experience as agender invalid, and it doesn't make you fake for identifying as a trans guy. Like, your gender is fluid, and it doesn't necessarily mean gender fluid.
Yeah.
That's basically where I'm trying to go about that.
The difference, and only you can really decide what changes qualifies as, like, just having separate individual genders and being gender fluid. Some people are gender fluid and their gender won't change for months at a time and they still call themselves gender fluid. Other people will have that same experience and they won't call themselves gender fluid. So a lot of this stuff with gender and sexuality, we can't tell you what you are. No one can tell you but yourself what you are.
We can point you in a direction, but ultimately it's up to you. We
can give you an idea of what we think you sound like, but at the end of the day, only you can decide what you think and want to identify as. So yeah, moving on. So all this, I'm going to move on to a couple different things that are under the gray asexuality and gray aromantic umbrellas. So there's demisexual, which is when you are only able to experience attraction to someone after a deep emotional connection has been formed. Like, it's basically kind of indicators that you might be this is you only fall for your best friends, or you have crushes on fictional characters or like celebrities or something like that.
I'm sorry. I have that issue.
And so when that happens, that's kind of an indicator. It's not a guarantee, but it's a sign that you might be demisexual. And that's a totally valid sexual orientation, but a lot of the times it gets coupled with something else, and that kind of tends to be the thing with asexual and aromantic identities, is that you can combine different things. So, like, I'm a hetero, romantic, sexual, whatever, gray ace and a gray A. Like, I have 2 parts.
It's like an addition to it for some of the, like, more spectrum-y parts of it, but it's one that's prominent and important enough that it needs to be added.
Yeah, so go by whatever you want to go by. If in public, to your friends and everyone, you just want to call yourself pan, but you're like ace and pan romantic, go for it. Do what you want. Call yourself how you want to call yourself. Present how you want to present. Just know how you personally feel. And then another thing that kind of goes along with that is ace flux, which is basically you feel like your place on the asexual or aromantic ace flux, and then aro flux. Your place on the spectrum fluctuates over time. It's kind of like the gender fluid version for sexuality. You shift around a lot, but at the end of the day, you're always on the asexual spectrum. And there's some people who have it shift around. It's not as common of a thing, but some people do experience that.
Nice. Okay, I'm gonna go a little out of order again.
Okay.
But you can see where I'm going out of order now. So there's is it confusion? I'm good with words today. Don't remember. There's one thing that I've always wanted to kind of actually talk about with people and try to make clear is, and I know a lot of people know this, so it's always been really thankful that I actually haven't had to do this too much, but there's like agender, which is feeling like void of gender. It's like
you don't have a gender.
Yeah, you don't experience gender feeling type stuff. I mean, you can experience dysphoria, but like
you don't have a gender.
Yes. And then there's more feeling like gender neutral, and I forget how to pronounce that word.
Neutrosis.
Something like that.
It's Neutrosis. I can't spell, okay? I would have lost the national spelling bee.
Okay. Well, it's a
thing. You can Google it, okay?
You can put it in the description or something later. So there's feeling like neutral, which is just like, yes, you have a gender. It's not necessarily in between in the binary like androgyny is, but it's just kind of. I mean, literally the word neutral is all it can be described.
You don't really care.
Yeah. So a lot of people. I mean, that can actually happen in agender. That's one that you can actually. Some people will use a little interchangeably just because of comfort. Like I know a lot of agender people who would actually refer to themselves as neutral and the other way around. But for sure, like, agender is basically being void of gender, while neutral is neutral. So that's something I want to cover. So in case you were ever confused about, like, what's the difference? Because they are kind of similar.
Okay, so I was doing the end of this video earlier and then I messed it up. So that's why there was just a weird time jump. Okay, I'll do my best. So now the last term that we're going to do is woman, girl, femme, man, gay, masc, sexual. It's basically for non-binary people who are attracted to one other gender and aren't comfortable using the terms hetero or homosexual. The terms in themselves aren't great because they've been applied in a lot of really crappy ways and a lot of, in fact, in some instances, transphobic ways. And the definition is, it's a term for non-binary people who are attracted to one other gender or sometimes one other gender presentation. So, like, being attracted to people who identify as female or demigirls, or people who are being attracted to people who identify as guys or demiguys. And it's not attraction to masculinity or femininity, because applying your standards of what is or is not masculine or feminine to other people isn't that great. So really, just in general, be careful when you use this term, because it's not that great, but there aren't any other terms out there. Be careful, be respectful, just don't be a jerk. And that's it. We're done. Part 2 is done. Woo! Woo!